What if we are here for a reason? What if we are a part of something truly divine?
Remember, love is always there, even if you cannot see it. Aloha, multidimensional friends, this is Brendan, and you're about to watch my conscious movie review for A Wrinkle in Time. So of course, getting right into this will be a spoiler review, but if you haven't seen the movie yet, I do recommend going and checking it out. Part of the reason why I'm making this video in the first place is because I know a lot of you, my friends included, may actually miss this movie. It's either going to fly under your radar, or you're going to listen to what the critics have to say about how it being a big old mess and a pile of poop and all that good stuff. But believe me, there are some potent conscious themes to this movie that are definitely worth your attention. So let's look a little deeper and find out why.
What if we are not just in the universe, but the universe is within all of us?
For those of you who may be new to my channel and those of you who are familiar with my other videos, you know that part of the reason why I do this conscious movie reviews is because of the idea that consciousness is doing what it can to help wake itself up through the power of symbol storytelling, the Hollywood wand, and the silver screen. This movie is absolutely no exception because there are some super shifty themes within it that are helping us remember more about who we are related to our multidimensional reality, the power of the conscious mind, the power of love, and how to be able to activate the light warrior within us all. So as a quick plot synopsis for A Wrinkle in Time, the story is about Mr. Murray, a fringe scientist who has been studying the theoretical idea about being able to travel through space and time using only the power of the mind. His idea is very unpopular, yet one day he mysteriously disappears.
91 billion light years traveled. Like that.
Flash forward several years later, and his children, Meg and their adopted son, Charles Wallace, soon find themselves in the company of three mysterious guides who are known as the Misses, who are actually fifth-dimensional beings who take them on a magical journey beyond Earth and beyond the stars and beyond the realms of their imagination on a search for their father, while also on a search for more light warriors to fight back against a darkness that is spreading throughout the universe and is even reaching back to Earth. And it is up to Meg, Charles Wallace, and their friend Calvin to be able to overcome their own fears, to be able to know themselves, to find Meg's father, and in turn be able to help activate a new wave of light warriors who will help change the world. Now, like I said, this movie is pretty weird, and I think that's a big part of the reason why a lot of people are just dismissing it or just giving it bad reviews, because they're just like, I don't know, man, this is just too weird, I can't really process it. But from my own personal perspective, the stuff within this movie may be weird, but let's be honest, life is pretty weird to begin with, and the themes that we get related to higher dimensional beings, related to the power of the conscious mind, related to thoughts being able to create reality, are things that are quite frankly right up my alley and are also helping the audience get a glimpse into some of what is hidden within plain sight when it comes to this reality. Being able to gain sight beyond sight, to be able to learn more about themselves and their connection to the universe. And of course, it's worth mentioning that yes, this movie is based on a book that was written in the 1960s. Now, even then, you can imagine that the book was considered quite weird, not only for its concepts, but also related to the idea that the main protagonist was a young female, something that was incredibly uncommon at the time. Now, in today's modern movies, that is still something that is relatively uncommon, and that in itself is worth noting as to how this film is helping change genres. Yes, it is a Disney movie, and a lot of the Disney movies do intentionally have these themes to help inspire and spark the spirit, and this movie, I feel, does it. This movie has the potential to really be able to plant some powerful seeds, not only in the youth, but people of all ages who see this movie.
Is that his work? What's it about?
Their dad, he wanted to touch the stars.
Now, of course, a huge theme within this movie are the idea of the guides, the Misses, and they are Mrs. What's-It, Mrs. Who, and Mrs. Which. Within the movie, these are actually fifth-dimensional beings. They exist beyond our common perception of space and time. They exist outside of it, meaning that they are non-linear and more omni-aware of how the universe kind of functions. And they are also billions of years old. Within the book, there's also the idea that a couple of them were actually stars who gave up their form. They exploded themselves into a supernova to be able to fight back against the darkness. You see the different characteristics of these fifth-dimensional beings within the movie. In particular, Mrs. What's-It, played by Reese Witherspoon, is actually pretty amusing to watch because she's basically in a human body for the first time, and so there's all these quirks and she's getting used to what it's like. It's just something I just found like pretty amusing, and yeah, something that I feel for all the fifth dimensional entities out there, you could probably relate. If you can wrap your mind around it, consciousness is not limited simply to the 3 dimensions that we experience within this reality, meaning that there are quite literally other conscious entities throughout there in the galaxy, and they do exist beyond the space and time that we normally perceive. And these are some things that you can think of as guides or quote-unquote angels, or even characters that you meet within your dream. And the idea here is that yes, there is a bigger universe out there than just what's on Earth. Within Earth, we are literally just perceiving through a small spectrum, yet that in itself is of course a story of our awakening, to be able to see through that small spectrum into the vast expansive awareness of many things. They tell the story of being able to help these humans by being able to guide them in the direction so that the humans can walk through these doors of self-awareness themselves. They can walk through these doors of perceptions themselves and go through their own process of remembering their own empowerment and their own connection to the universe and their own abilities that are already inside them, that are in many ways the shared abilities of these fifth dimensional beings. So quite frankly, I mean, like, this is the big kicker if you really want to like go there. It's the idea that all of us are already fifth dimensional entities in a 3D form. And our objective is to be able to bridge that awareness of what it means to have that fifth dimensional consciousness already inside of us while still being a 3-dimensional being. There theoretically may be guides who are helping and even observing us go through this journey, yet it is up to us to be able to find our own way, to be able to make our own path. Now, of course, I will just mention that the fact that Oprah's in this movie is a big thing. Like, Oprah is super spiritual in her own way. I would say all the people who worked on this movie are super into conscious themes in their own way, as all humans have the potential to be. And also the character of Calvin, I will mention that he was in Peter Pan a few years back, and that in itself was all about the awakening of the dreamer. So for him to be in this movie and in that movie, it's no coincidence, you know, it is a coinciding incident. And so here we continue to see this bigger overarching story from one movie to the next, of all of us continuing to step into more of our potential as the awakened dreamer, as the light warrior. Now, one thing that really stood out for me is, again, these undertones of the metaphorical journey that is taking place here. Of course, we have Meg and Charles Wallace who are searching for their father. Now, this can be thought of as almost like an esoteric journey of searching for the father, or the awareness of the sun, so to speak. Oftentimes we get this idea of the father being the sun and the moon being the mother. So yes, they are literally looking for Meg's father, but they are also on this esoteric, ancient, metaphorical journey of knowing themselves, finding the sun, finding the father, so to speak, within themselves, finding their own connection and their remembrance to the light and to the love and to the universe within themselves. This quite literally is a journey and a story of the universe searching for itself, which again is an incredibly beautiful thing when you really step back and think about it, and something that is literally happening right now as we speak, as we exist, and you are a part of it. You are on that quest too. In this movie, they kind of talk about the idea of how the mom, as a scientist as well, is interested in the subtle underlying energies, the unseen energies that connect us all.
Think about quantum entanglement. 2 electrons, once bonded together, in love, if you will, suddenly separated by a galaxy, but somehow still just as connected.
While the father is more interested in the macrocosm, the big picture of things, and how it all connects on that scale.
Dimensions outside of the limitations of space and time. Imagine that. Imagine.
One of the best ways to be able to understand and appreciate this movie is to be able to look at the intention of it, about being able to help inspire and empower the audience to be able to activate the light warrior within them.
We are in search of warriors.
Warriors who serve the good and the light in the universe.
For those of you who are already familiar with my work, you know that the idea of creating a global team of light warriors, of light guardians, of Jedis, of light workers, whatever you want to call us, is something that I am very adamant about. And this quite simply means the idea of people being able to intentionally move forward in the world with courage, compassion, and wisdom to be able to help make it a better place, not only for themselves, but for the generations to come. And so part of the way that the characters as well as the audience come into this place of knowing themselves and their own self-empowerment is the ability to see what is hidden in plain sight. Right at the beginning, they literally show cymatics. And cymatics, for those of you who aren't familiar, is the idea of vibration creating form, the resonance frequencies that create form all around us. Just the idea that cymatics is like something that a lot of people don't even know about is really key to be able to have that in front of them, because it is something that is quite magical. And oftentimes we can think about it this way, and this is a big theme of the movie itself, is the idea that magic, quote unquote, is just science that we do not understand. Well, again, the idea of cymatics, the idea of vibration creating form, is something that we literally see all throughout reality. It is directly connected to sacred geometry. It is directly connected to the idea of as above, so below. It is connected to the idea that our bodies literally emit a frequency in itself, and when we are emitting the frequency of love, we can bring things into harmony. In the same way that if we are emitting a frequency of fear, then oftentimes that can bring about disharmony and chaos. And the idea that love in itself is a frequency that can often demonstrate beauty and symmetry in a pattern that we can easily identify. And this in itself, this knowing, is a key tool, a key weapon of any light warrior, to know of the power of the vibrations that they carry within them and how that can help change the world and the society around them. When we face chaos, we learn that by simply holding the vibration of love, we can actually help alchemize things into a place of harmony. And so within this movie, that is something that is a huge theme, the idea of the light versus dark, the good versus evil. It is an ongoing story that has been happening throughout the ages. It is the ever-unfolding dyadic cyclone, the never-ending dance that propels this universe forward. The idea of the darkness reaching Earth that can be seen as apathy or greed or envy, that in itself also is the call to action for the light warriors to be able to step into their purpose, because oftentimes the problem is the solution. So this movie, though it may be a story, is actually reflecting a very real issue that is happening within this day and age, and will in many ways continue to happen, yet that in itself is part of the motivation behind more people being inspired to not only know that they can make a difference, but to be able to move forward with the intention of making that difference. And so another big theme within this movie is the core concept of the plot, which is the idea of being able to travel through space and time simply by going inside. There literally is this ability, this natural ability through the advanced spiritual technology that is our human bodies, to be able to travel through multiple dimensions by going inside. We do this every night when we dream, we can do this through meditation, and evidently we will even do this when the time comes for us to leave our attachment to this physical body. And so part of the reason as to how this is all possible relates to our idea that we are intimately and interconnected to everything within the universe. You can think of it as the idea of us being connected to almost like a collective consciousness internet. And so it doesn't even matter what's actually in our brain as much as it is the ability to be able to connect into the collective consciousness. And throughout the movie, we even see this when there are group meditation scenes, and the group is basically practicing remote viewing, if you want to give it that term, the ability of being able to go inside, to be able to see through space and time, to be able to retrieve information based on the focus of our intentions. Even though it's presented in the movie as if it's just like a part of a plot device, this is stuff that is actually real, and it is actually accessible, and it is something that can be experienced by all of us. Now, one big thing that pops up within this movie is the idea of the tesseract, or as they refer to it, the idea of tessering. The shape of the tesseract can be thought of as a cube within a cube. Symbolically, that basically refers to the fractal nature of this reality, the idea of dimensions being able to fit inside dimensions, inside dimensions, inside dimensions. It's the idea of as above, so below. It's the idea as to why the spiral of your fingertip is the same spiral of a galaxy. This movie, even though it does relate to the idea of dimensions within dimensions and fractals and all that good stuff, is also thought of as the idea of being able to fold time in on itself through the idea of being able to hold a vibration and then having the faith to be able to step forward through it. Within the movie, it is something that is demonstrated primarily through the characters of the fifth dimensional guides, yet it is something that is shown to be possible by the humans themselves. Now, this might be something that can be thought of as a bit of a stretch, so to speak, and perhaps, we as humans are only beginning to tap into the potential of what we are actually capable of. And the idea of being able to travel and move our bodies through space and time, physically and metaphysically, is actually something that may still be on the horizon for us to discover. If you think of this as more of like a metaphor for what we can already do by going inside, then this isn't actually as far-fetched as it may seem. At the very least, the idea of being able to transport ourselves across the galaxy or from one dimensional plane to another is something that can quite readily be experienced through the active process of dreaming or lucid dreaming. The idea of being able to think of a spot and to be able to teleport ourselves there simply by holding our focus on that idea. So again, it can already happen within our dreams, and that in itself is pretty amazing. Chris Pine's character, Mr. Murray, the vibrational frequency that he discovered that allowed him to Tesser in the first place is literally love. And it doesn't really get much deeper into that, but again, it's this idea that love in itself is such a powerful frequency that it can literally transport us through space and time. So if you're like meditating and trying to like travel through dimensions by going inwards, think about and hold the idea of the vibration of love and see where that takes you. Whether you're calling it stargates, whether you're talking about the pineal gland, whether you're talking about any of that good stuff, it's there, man. It's there. And all it takes is a little bit of practice, but again, simply knowing, like, that is a huge thing. So again, all of the ideas within this movie are things that are helping equip us as light warriors, as light guardians, to be able to know that we have all the tools, that we have all the abilities already inside of us that we need to be able to help change this reality and do our part within the bigger story. And that's where the character of Mr. Murray is really passionate about it. Like, he is very scientific minded, yet he is also very heart oriented, and he in himself kind of represents the emergence and the mergence of the science and the spirit, and being able to find where the two meet and being able to see that they are one and the same, and through that being able to see more of the potential within ourselves. So of course throughout this movie we visit various locations, and of course one of them takes place within the darkness, within Camazot as it is called. This in itself is something that's really interesting because it's very much kind of a representation of the dream space. It's almost a representation of the idea of our thoughts creating, or the idea of being able to see that all is mind and all is a reflection of ourselves. And then through this we realize that everything that comes at us is actually a test that we are actually capable of overcoming. And once we kind of pierce through the illusion that the test is there to help make us stronger in the first place, it allows us to be able to find that inner guidance that will lead us and be able to help us see with sight beyond sight how to be able to navigate and move through these challenges with grace. Another theme worth looking at in this movie are the characters of the three children, Meg, Charles, Wallace, and Calvin. This in itself is interesting because you can look at sort of the symbolism of Meg and Calvin representing the male and female, but then you also have the idea of Charles Wallace, who represents the child, the pure at heart. Charles Wallace in himself is an incredibly interesting character. Though it's not really fully explained, you get this idea that Charles Wallace clearly has already had his connection to the guides, to the misses, before they even arrive, meaning that he is already connected to them, or the fact that he is a young child means that he is already open to the idea of their existence, and maybe he dreams about them, maybe he talks to them. You even see at one point in the movie that he's already like drawing pictures of them before they even arrive. Since this movie is all about time and space kind of folding back in on itself, Charles Wallace, from a soul perspective, so to speak, actually kind of reverse engineered the idea that he himself had to be there as part of Meg's family as the adopted child that just so happened to find their way into their lives in order to be able to lead the rest of them on this journey to be able to find Meg's father. So it's kind of like this, which came first type thing, it's kind of all happening simultaneously, and that in itself is something that really fascinated me. The idea of being able to see the world as a child does is an incredibly important idea because it allows us to see the magic that will often get conditioned out of us, but if we can maintain the idea of that pureness of heart, of that inner child, that will help guide us on this journey. And that is why I think Charles Wallace is actually like one of the most important characters within the plot. Another part within this story is understanding the idea that we are all pieces of a bigger puzzle. We are all pieces of each other's puzzle. And it's important to be able to acknowledge the fact that we do play a role in the lives of those around us. And simply by being able to show up with peace and love and understanding and compassion and wisdom and courage, it's going to be able to help not only our own story, but be able to help the bigger story and be able to help our friends by being able to help them see more of themselves, to see the love within themselves simply by being a mirror for that bigger idea. One of the main themes within this movie is being able to love yourself and being able to understand that our faults are our gifts too. And there is this one phrase that comes throughout the film multiple times, the idea that our cracks are where the light shines through. So when we can learn to see that perfect is a matter of perspective, then we can learn to see that everything is deserving of love. It allows us to reflect on, how far would we go for family? How far would we go for what we are passionate about? And the fact is that love has the ability to take us as far as we wish to go, even beyond what we wish to go. The human body, the human mind, the human spirit has the potential to overcome the most incredible odds. And that is the big story within this movie. And so related to the tessering that happens, one thing that's really interesting is that throughout the movie, Meg is having a hard time tessering, and whenever they tesser, it just kind of like shows this like shadowy thing that kind of happens. Yet later in the movie, because she is aware of herself, she is able to tesser properly. And when she does this, the movie kind of moves into this conclusion where we see her opening up to this psychedelic experience, which is again something that I thought was like a beautiful representation on screen of something that can actually be experienced by the soul, by consciousness on multiple levels, be it within dreams, be it within death, be it within meditation, and be it even within psychedelic experiences. So to be able to see that on screen was something that was really interesting, because again, you're like, yeah, it looks good on screen and everything, but it's actually referring to some real ideas as to the basic concept that this consciousness here within this body has the ability to be able to experience things far beyond this regular 3D perception of reality. And so as the movie concludes, it ends once again with the strong message that we stated at the beginning, that this is about being able to help activate the light warrior and the light guardian within every single one of us. And that this is about those of us who are able to see the darkness and to be able to bring ourselves through the darkness and to be able to help bring our light into the world. And it ends with the last message of knowing that tomorrow there will be more of us. So this movie in itself is something that I see and echo as a call to action. It is an invitation for all of us to be able to know that the powers of the universe, that our awareness to the universe and the idea that we are much bigger than we have been led to believe, are already inside of us. And with that, we have all of the abilities and potential that we need to be able to help change the world, simply by being compassionate, simply by holding that courage and holding that wisdom, to be kind to our neighbors, to be kind to those who are suffering, to be able to help plant seeds, to be able to help be mirrors, to be the shifters who will continue to help shift the paradigms. And that in itself is an incredibly powerful message, and that is why this movie, though as weird as it is definitely worth giving some attention to. So simply by this movie existing, simply by those seeds being planted, it is helping change the world by reminding kids more about who they are, asking the bigger questions about this metaphysical reality, and giving them the inspiration and the guidance to know that they can choose to be the change that they wish to see in the world. So in conclusion, a reminder that you are a light warrior, that you are a light guardian as much as you choose to be. Go give this movie a chance if you haven't already seen it yet. I didn't spoil it as much as I had originally intended to. There's still a lot for you to go to enjoy. So thank you to the filmmakers who helped bring this movie together. Thank you for watching this video and being able to share. If there were more things that you liked about this movie or thoughts about it that you want to leave in the comments below, please do so. Let's continue the discussion. And as always, if you would like to support me on Patreon, you can do that. And in return, you can also get your own Light Guardian crystal and shift buttons as part of your Shifter Booster Kit. And of course, you can check out more at ParadigmShiftCentral.com and connect with our global team of Light Guardians as this story continues to unfold. Keep it shifty, go out there, change the world, and as always, I will see you in the future. Much love.
I cannot leave without my father.
You are stronger than I ever was.
Be a warrior.
Do you trust me? I trust you.